From Florida's Space Coast, this is Your Career.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me today is April Dennis, and April is the Program Director of Future Problem Solving Program International. I tell you, that is quite a name, but what you guys do is fascinating and really critical today more than ever. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective anyway, what really triggered or inspired Dr. Torrance to create Future Problem Solvers?
Well, Dr. Torrance in the 70s was working with a lot of disadvantaged youth outside of Georgia, where he was working in Athens at the University of Georgia. And he noticed kind of a twofold concern with the students, their lack of creativity and also their lack of vision and studying of the future. So he combined the creative problem-solving process along with looking at problems projected into the future to create the Future Problem-Solving Program. Every year we come across different topics for our students. Last year, actually, we studied the topic of the global workplace. Goes right along with the vision of your show. So we had students projecting 20 to 30 years in the future, what their careers might look like, the forms of technology, the interactions with each other, how they would communicate across time zones, through virtual settings. So just going ahead and projecting what are some things that are going to go well in a situation like that, and what are some things that might be a challenge in a situation like that, and then analyzing that situation.
It's pretty fascinating. Are there specific, I'm certain there are, because you continue to grow and expand. How many countries are you in? Where are you really based today?
We actually have a mentoring program, so anyone, anywhere in the world can sign up to participate, and they can work with us virtually. The students can go online, participate. They submit their work to us. We have evaluators who come in, give them feedback to help them grow and expand on their thinking, and it's provided back to them virtually. We are in most every state here in the U.S. and in 13 countries. So we're always evolving and growing, so our numbers are always adjusting as to where we are.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, very glad to see the impact. And really talking about impact, what measurable difference or impact has the organization really seen since its inception, I think in 1974?
Right. Well, actually, Dr. Torrance created one initial program, the Future Problem Solving Program, where the students were provided with a synopsis, a scenario, and they went through the 6-step problem solving process using that scenario. What are some challenges? What might be the biggest problem that they saw? What are some different solutions that they could create and come up with? How do they then measure their solutions against each other? It's easy to come up with a lot of solutions, but unless you have those focusing tools to really be able to say which solution is the best. So he systematically taught them how to make those kinds of decisions. And then as the culminating factor in that work, the students would come up with an action plan. So kind of like a Shark Tank pitch, what are they going to do to solve this problem? So that was the initial component that he created. And then after that came along several other newer components that were brought forth to us by the needs of our kids. So we had the futuristic aspect, but then we also noticed a lot of our students wanted to study the here and now within their communities. So there might be a situation with, someone needing transplants, or someone who wanted to help with road safety or texting and driving. And these students became passionate about using their problem-solving skills within their community. So community problem solving was born through that avenue. And today we had 82 projects last year at our international conference with the students displaying an impact that they've made on their community. And these kids have been on TED Talk.
So these are community projects that are truly having an impact within the community. So they're working with community leaders or groups so that they can make... Can you tell us a little bit more, maybe give us an example, a couple of those projects?
Absolutely. So the students themselves actually choose the project. So sometimes it might be a family friend who has a concern. Sometimes it might be something, we have students who go to chamber meetings or rotaries or things like that, and they hear of a concern that way. And the students themselves make the change. A project I can think of that was a Beyonder Award winner at our international conference was there was a group of students in a school in New Zealand that were deaf. And when the fire alarm would sound, they didn't know about it because they, of course, could not hear the alarm. So the group of problem solvers used the Raspberry Pi electronic board and got some lighting and connected it up with the audio system, put it on the students' desks, so when there was an alarm, they would actually see. And
that
hear.
light would ignite, and
Absolutely.
they knew that
They
there
knew.
was a warning.
Yeah. In Manatee County, here in Florida on the other coast, this year's Beyonder Award winner was a homeless project. And the students wanted to connect the homeless population with the community and really enhance their sense of community and well-being. It's called the Humans of Manatee County.
Wow.
So they did some picnic tables, they interviewed them, asked them, what would make you feel more connected? And a lot of it was to be treated like an adult. So these young adult leaders were taking their skills and sharing that within the community. So whatever kind of projects the kids see as a need in their community, they have their coach to help them, but they really are the vehicles of change, the kids are.
And they're using the process.
They're using the process.
Tell me a little bit more about this process. You said there were 6 steps. Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. So the first step is in analyzing any situation, you come up with the possible things that could go wrong. That's usually pretty easy. And we have the students, pose them in, what might happen, what may happen.
Okay.
It's very hypothetical.
Yeah. So they're really just brainstorming, though.
Absolutely.
In real world, they're looking at different possible variables or, elements that might be introduced at some point that could create a roadblock or obstacle to their success.
And one of the things that Dr. Torrance measured in creativity is the flexibility of thinking. So we have categories, and we encourage the students to, when they're brainstorming challenges, to think about what could go wrong in a business way, what could go wrong socially, what could go wrong arts and aesthetics, what could go wrong in social relationships, what could go wrong in technology, so that instead of staying focused on one interest area, we're really encouraging our kids to branch out and look at different ways that a challenge could happen.
Maybe be more of a holistic thinker is the way I look at that. Multidimensional.
Absolutely.
Much like some of our stronger senior engineers, I would think, that I've had an opportunity to work with that definitely are as well.
Absolutely. So then once the students in a team of 4, they're in a group of 4, once they determine all of their challenges, they then take a look at the scene itself or a community problem solving project and say, which one of these challenges has the biggest underlying factor and can make the most difference. So they just leave this generating phase where they're coming up with all of these ideas, and they have to switch gears and focus in. And then after they've identified that underlying problem, they go back to generating again and come up with solutions. How might they solve? Again, using the categories. Then
So the categories, is that, when you're looking at the different categories, is that a way to establish some criteria to determine? I mean, how do they go about determining the best solution?
well, you might know the 6 steps already, Debbie,
I don't know.
because that's the next. That's
really?
the next step.
I really don't.
You're a natural problem solver. So then the 4th step in the problem solving process is the students write criteria.
Okay.
And that's where they then measure their top solutions against each other. And we do that in the form of an evaluation matrix grid. And they are forced to rank them against each other, assigning values, which one is better than the other, based on the criteria. If you've ever worked with young students or teens, many times they want to choose the solution that just feels the best or the one that they came up with. But we know as professionals that maybe sometimes that's not the solution that's going to meet those criteria. So by them developing those criteria, them having to then analyze it against each other and measure it, they're able to choose the solution that's going to have the most impact.
What role do the supervisors, the adult supervision, the coaches, I think you...
They can be coaches, teachers. We've had parents say, you know, our children are really interested in current events. They're really interested in problems in the community, so they start a group right there in their living room.
Perfect. Because let me answer, give you the perspective I was looking at. When I'm thinking about, you know, you have a group of kids that are getting together and they go through the criteria, but yet they may need some guidance.
Absolutely.
From a mentor, a coach, parent, whoever is, and I really don't know the process well enough to.
It could be any of them.
Okay.
And all of them.
Okay.
A lot of teachers find this very useful in enrichment or within even the core curriculum. We've had English teachers use this process with Romeo and Juliet. You know, what are the challenges there? What could some possible different solutions have been for those characters?
We would have loved a different outcome.
Absolutely. We've had history teachers use it for, you know, World War II or, you know, the Hitler's regime, you know, what kind of went on. So lots of different ways. That's really the beauty of the program. It can meet a lot of different needs and a lot of different ways to connect. So the role of the coach is truly based on the needs of the students.
Okay.
Some of our senior high school students, they have been participating since they were in 4th grade. Which is when
Fabulous.
we first start competing as 4th grade. And by 11th and 12th grade, they just need the coach to give them a space and let them have a place to talk through their concerns. Personally, I started off teaching this in my classroom years ago, and I would sit with the students and just give them probing questions, and have you thought about this, and have you thought about that? So it is the role of a coach or a facilitator that really gets the kids thinking and gives them some tools to think. Kids are natural creative thinkers.
Yes, I would say they're very creative for sure.
Right.
But I think they need to be developed and
absolutely
guided.
Absolutely. So we have all of these tools that we infuse into our different steps to encourage and to help them grow into problem solvers, whether it be creatively through generating lots of ideas, or whether it be critically through focusing in. And that's almost a missing piece. How do you take then all these creative ideas and analyze and focus in on some of your best solutions?
What other aspects are there to this process? How else can it be applied? I think you mentioned something about competitions before.
Absolutely.
I think before we started.
Yeah. So we are at the end. International conference every year is where the champions from, you know, the different states and the countries come together and converge and go up against each other for, you know, top prizes and the competition. But beyond that, thousands and thousands of students participate in classrooms. Like I mentioned, academic classrooms or club-like situations, and learn the process.
So let me go back to the competition, because I think it's kind of like the debate. You know, if I'm a speech, I'm going to get into that debate process, right?
Right.
So what does that look like? What is that forum? How are they evaluated? I mean, truly, how do you compare one group to another? Really, you know, how
we have about 2,200 students every summer. We converge on a university campus and have 4 days of competitions and events. If they're doing problem solving and a future problem solving, they meet in their team of 4. Our community problem solvers set up their projects in a big gymnasium or other big venue. We have a night where the public's invited, all the other participants are invited. They set up their projects, they share about them. There's so much energy in that room.
I could just imagine.
That the kids are just ecstatic to share their projects. We also have scenario writing competition for our students who like to write stories. And the beauty of that competition is they're placed on a team with students they've never met before, and they together create a story. And that's part of their competition. And then our newest component, you had asked about, you know, the history and how we've changed over the past 42 years. 5 or 6 years ago, our Australian affiliate program decided that there was a lost art of storytelling and the oral tradition of telling and sharing stories. So they created a new competition component called scenario performance. And this is where students are given 4 to 5 minutes They stand up on a stage and they share their story. They're allowed a few cue cards just to kind of give them, a little bit of guidance, but they just stand there and share their story.
Are they given a topic in the moment?
Yes. We have 5 topics every year, and we use our topics based on a submission process. So the students will submit topics online, then we put them out there for a student vote. So what you might read about in popular science or on, U.S. News and World Report, anything like that
So
they
we could
find interesting.
deal with politics, we could deal
Absolutely.
with educational issues, poverty, anything.
We have 3 strands that we focus on: business and commerce, social and political issues, and science and technology.
Okay.
And sometimes those topics do interweave with each other, but for the most part, those are the 3 main strands. Then what happens throughout the school year, whether it be here in the Northern Hemisphere starting in August or September, or we have many schools in the Southern Hemisphere where they start their school year in January or February. So they receive a couple of practice problems, 2 practice problems. Then they have smaller competitions. Then they have their national or state competition, and that's what leads them up to the international conference.
With these competitions, are they broken out within the categories, the 3 major categories that you defined? Are they also broken out by age or some kind of level?
They are, yes. We have a junior division, our 4th through 6th graders.
Okay.
Then middle, 7th through 9th grade. And then our senior high division, 10th grade through 12th grade. And that's for all our components, whether it be the scenario writing or the community problem solving. And I know you had asked about evaluation.
Yes.
And we have adult volunteers. Some of them with educational backgrounds, some of them with science and technology backgrounds, some of them that were parents or adult coaches who just wanted to start learning, and we provide training to them. We have a certification process. We do a lot of rubrics, which is where you choose a range of where the work lies and the understanding lies. And then we collect that preliminary information from our evaluators, read through it, and then sometimes we have some 2nd and 3rd level analysis of their work to make sure that we really are not only giving feedback to our students to help them grow, but when it does come time for that highest level of competition, that we are justly awarding the most deserving. But during the practice problems and the preliminary time, it's feedback for growth. We want to provide that balance of helping our kids know where they can get stronger, and also letting them know what they're doing well. So a different approach than a right or wrong answer. We don't have right or wrong answers.
I love that, because you're helping to stimulate and encourage the growth. So instead of there being anything punitive, there's always growth and development from it, right?
Absolutely.
That's perfect. I love that. That's more in line with the way I like things to be handled. I don't know, it might come from my adult learning background, but I'm just curious, is there anything around the competitions where the topics have changed? They're more contemporary. They're different topics that you're focused on today than you were a while back?
Absolutely. One of the topics coming up this year is 3D printing.
Oh.
So certainly that wasn't
Heard
around
a
in
lot
the
about
80s.
that.
But what we find is our topics are very timely. So back in the 80s, there was a topic on cashless society. And the scene had, these cards that people were going to carry around and not use cash so much. And there were some worries from the students that people's cards might be used incorrectly. And one of the solutions was that they get a code to have with their cards. And I mean, now we know we use our debit cards and our PIN cards all the time. So a lot of our things are very, very timely.
That's
We've
great.
dealt with issues such as mega cities. And dealt with issues, the ocean and the overfishing and the populations of the ocean. One of my favorite topics was land transportation, and now we're seeing the rise of the self-driving cars and the Google cars and things like that. So that topic was only 5 or 6 years ago, and it's changed dramatically since then. So this year we're studying 3D printing, we're studying identity theft, which that's in the news all the time.
All the time.
One of the topics we're studying is educational disparities. And that's been really enlightening for some of our students to take a look in different cultures, different economic backgrounds, and how education and the haves and have-nots of education are coming into play, and what solutions might happen.
Yeah. So how can somebody actually get involved?
Well,
You know, how do they get started? I mean, you could take the adult and then you could look at the student. I think we
Yes.
have a sneak preview of the student, but
essentially, adults come in a variety of ways to support the program. Most of the adults that we have in our program have joined up because either they're in education or their children are part of the program. And what's interesting is we have several adult leaders who are leading programs. Our Malaysia director, our Minnesota director, the president of California's Future Problem Solving Board are all involved because their children were. So they were parents, and their children aren't even in the program anymore. They're graduated
still
college and,
involved.
and still moved on, and they're still with us as leaders and supporters. We have parents who have connections with organizations for fundraising, making connections for grants. I mean, that's a support that, while directly not working with students, is a tremendous benefit to us. We have several alumni. Our alumni are great supporters, of course, that are reporters. We have alumni on our board, a marketing director, someone who's an engineer helping us with some technology needs. So,
my curiosity is, as you're teaching these students, right, these young people, how to have these more creative minds, to be critical thinkers, solve problems, do you see a higher percentage of them going to college, getting more involved in different occupations? I mean, I know you don't capture that data. I'm just kind of wondering what your sense is. Do you track them well enough?
I have several. I mean, social media has been great for that. I have several of my personal students who, I have a young lady. I was actually on her Facebook page today. She's at the University of Florida doing a culinary institute and always putting her creations on Facebook. We have a student who was at Melbourne High. She might have been on our last edition.
Okay.
She is writing a problem-solving column for her college newspaper in Tennessee.
I love that.
We have students on our board of trustees. We just restructured, and we have 3 of our board members actually 4 of our board members actually participated in the program as students themselves. We don't have any data that we've captured. Dr. Torrance did a lot of longitudinal studies where he tracked his students over the years, and certainly those students, with the infusion of creativity training, were able to demonstrate that that really has enhanced their professional and personal lives tremendously.
I could see this being a great way to boost confidence, expand a knowledge base, give them ideas and open up possibilities for career options that they may have never considered before. As a program director, before our time runs out, I'm curious, what is the one thing that you love about this program?
There's always something different, new and exciting. I go to work every day, and something always comes up, whether it be a story of success from anywhere around the world or right here in our backyard, whether it be a new topic that someone says, hey, wouldn't this be a great thing to study? And then my wheels just, start churning. Whether it be developing materials for coaches to help them, help students. Just answering questions for our different directors as they come across needs, and how can we connect up and help each other to ultimately help our society. I mean, that's our goal. We're all in this together, and the more skills we give our kids, the better off really we're all going to be in the end.
We are preparing them for the future, aren't we? So that there is a better world that they're living in and that they're surrounded in. I am just curious, of all the new materials that are out on your website, do you have any favorites?
We have a classroom curriculum that I really like. because it introduces the problem-solving process, which is so important, and the basis of our program, of course. But it also infuses those critical and creative thinking skills, and it starts off small. It starts off looking at something so basic as a nursery rhyme, and having any student able to have success with a nursery rhyme. Of course, some of our brighter students excel farther in the program naturally, but in a situation like that with our curriculum, all students can sit around and come up with possible problems and possible solutions. So I really like that because it's approachable to anyone and everyone, and that skill development's going to be there.
It's huge help
for all.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and that's going to be the last word. Okay. But thank you, April, for coming and spending time and updating us in terms of what's happening in I was going to say the acronym, but I won't get it out. Future Problem Solving International.
Thank you so
much. Pleasure. Well, on behalf of my guest and everyone here on the set of Your Career, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.